Très bien, Laurent. Alors, avant de rentrer dans le vif du sujet, on va faire un petit sondage dans la salle. Alors, ceux qui sont à distance, ce sera un petit peu compliqué pour qu'on ait le retour. Et puis, comme on est après le déjeuner, ça fera du bien de bouger un peu. Qui dans la salle utilise de l'Active Directory? Ok, donc je pense que tout le monde a levé la main.
I think everybody's put their hands up, so everybody has a company directory. Who is faced with security aspect of the Active Directory? Yes, same number. Who implemented third-party model? Yes. A little bit fewer people, but more than the previous years, so it's something which is becoming usual. One final question, and then I'll let Laurent talk about it. Who's 100% confident in the implementation or in the protection guaranteed by the third-party model? Nobody dares. The third-party model is extremely versatile but quite complex, and is going to be part of the issues which drove this feedback on experience. Laura, can you explain to us, what led your organization to think and to provide a solution such as Silverfort is? Thank you very much, Mark. So I feel equivalent to all of you in the room. We are an Active Directory with a few thousand users. We're faced with some problems, as all of you were probably, around the hardening of the Active Directory, because we know that there are always things to be done to cancel some attacks. So we're still looking for solutions reassuring us a little bit, and solutions we would trust to fight against attacks or at least detect them. Then we had the second topic, which was an important one for me, because we've got some people who are administrators. They've got privileged access accounts, so by essence, that leads that adds extra risk, because I can do things that I couldn't do with a standard account, and the privileged access accounts are necessary with the right level of access given. So with the security team, we thought, okay, are we going to go towards a bastion, deal with PAM? And if so, what will be the impact of it? So we looked at different PAM solutions that you must have heard elsewhere. We knew that by knowledge or hearsay, they are efficient solutions which are sometimes complicated to deploy, because they add there are some protocol breaks that we've got, and things that we've got to change in the life of the administrators used to their own tools, and things have got to be changed at this level. So we thought about it, and it's thanks to that we came across Silverfort, knowing that we had a third issue to deal with, and that third issue, I think that we all face it. We've got history in the society, in the company, which is quite important. The history leads to, I create an account one day, which is the account for a person. That's okay, because it's attached to this person. So when this person leaves the company, we hear about it, and we thought, okay, this is Mr. Smith and is left, so we can stop the account. And that's when we don't have any other solutions, automatic solutions at IMF. And we also have non-human accounts, and we create them for a testing period or for a solution. We implement it, and we know that it works the time of the test or when the solution is put into production. Some people ask you to configure all this, but nobody asks you saying, okay, the solution, we've stopped the test and it doesn't work, and we disable it, or there are no more subjects in production, can we disable the service account? The second thing that we came across was that, as everywhere else, I think that our security policies evolve, and at one time we wondered okay, our service accounts, we should increase the security of passwords, so 25 characters, for instance, and to switch to 25 characters, I'm going to put them in a specific area where we're going to say all these service accounts are 25 characters long, so I've got to go on all the equipment where I've got the passwords. I need to know where the accounts are used and whether they are used or not. So these were questions that we asked ourselves in the team. How can I find easily service accounts? So we put all the service accounts we were sure of in one place, and then there were others still lagging around, so we weren't 100% confident on what the situation was. So we met with the Silverfort people quite a while ago, and they started to give us the solution that they could provide. In all transparency, we dealt with the part, what could I do to make my privileged account safer? Can we move on to the next slide, please? So we had the first presentation given to us with a demonstration of the solution that helped us to understand what the solution was able to provide. So that was interesting, of course, for us to understand what it could do, and we realized that the solution could provide us with answers to questions that we didn't have specifically for service accounts. And then we thought, okay, maybe we should probe a little bit further besides the management and PAM. So privilege accounts, PAM, then that means complexity. Some topics are made a priority more quickly than others. So, and we thought, okay, what Silverfort tells us, I mean, we've got the ability to do things which are much simpler than with a Bastion, and that could help us to go forward and to increase the security level with a solution like I decided to protect by introducing MFA, by challenging some administration accounts on specific actions, like I will launch a product check with remote access, so I'm going to put in an MFA. But I could also say for anybody coming to connect on this or that server, which I see as sensitive, I want to add an MFA. There are static real rules that we could see already in the solution, and there's also the possibility that we discovered during the presentation to set rules that would become more dynamic based on the context or risk level calculated by the solution, or thanks to elements that we add, which means that it's not a static element. This IB I want to protect, or this person I'm going to give an MFA. We can have dynamic rules set out for specific criteria. On this particular criterion, I will say, for instance, I block, or I challenge, or I let go. So these things were quite interesting for us, and we had a POC which took place a little while later. So the first characteristic that we noticed during this was quite ballistic. I mean, it gave us they said, okay, if you have to do DFO, what are the use cases that we've got to cover? We used our use case, and they gave us extra use cases, and we thought, okay, that we didn't think about this solution, so that was quite interesting for us. We looked at a few use cases that were suggested to us. We shared for about half an hour And Frank, who's in the audience here, told us, okay, this is the way we're going to do it. Everything was processed, and that is something that makes you feel confident, because that's not always the case. And he said, okay, we're going to start with a check on DC to make sure that they've got the physical conditions to support the solution and accept the solution. So we went through health checks, results were analyzed, and we had the go-ahead. This is the next step. We're going to install it, and then we implemented it. And during the whole POC, I mean, the team was quite impressed by the fact that what we wanted to do, we did it as a video with Frank. Everything was simple. Frank said, you click here, you do this, you do that. We tested it and it worked. We moved on to the next use case. So that was very interesting for us to see that it could work from the word go, which is not always the case with the solutions. So all the solutions work well, but when you are in a production customer environment, it doesn't always work as well, because there are always cases that we forgot to think about, and it blocks the situation. But we had no blocking element during the simulation, and we could do all our use cases and the Silverfort's suggested use cases also. Use case was protection of the privilege accounts, being able to trigger an MFA request or refusing access depending on the person per se. So you put this in place on an on-premise or a legacy environment. So legacy applications, yes, it encompassed this type of issues, and we treated issues as varied as the example was quite simple. It's not the right approach to be done in a real world, so to speak. When we wanted to test something, the solution that was suggested by Frank was to say, okay, you want to do this. This is, I want to be connected onto a server that we think as sensitive, and anybody connecting onto the server should have a challenge via MFA on Google Authenticator or on the Silverfort application, which is going to be on my cell phone. So the solution that was suggested was very simple, very functional. Connect yourself onto the server. So we would connect ourselves on the RDP with the server. Check in the log, in the Silverfort log. It's a user-friendly way of presenting what we would see in the Active Directory log, but in a more simpler way, because we see all the information about the authentication. This person connected on that person from this device using this protocol, and he got an authentication that was granted or not by the Active Directory. And based on that, I want to set a rule. I click, I set up the rule. From now on, anybody connecting on this destination will have an MFA extra request sent. I click on that, reconnect yourself. I'm in RDP, and I get an MFA request from then on. So it's very easy to do that. I mean, it's not great to implement that in a production environment, but we've got to think about what we want to protect and how we're going to do that, to have a proper plan to roll it out afterwards. But for a POC, it's a good thing to do. Same thing with a PowerShell. You open a window, you send a PowerShell with a remote context, and it works straight away. I'm going to create a challenge on that. I'll check on the log, and I see my connection. I look afterwards. I want to block all the requests of this type. I block that, and from then on, I get an MFA on my device, and I can only do it on my user, which is nonsensical in the production, because that's what we did during the POC, to block things quickly and the user to make sure that it worked well.
Vocabulaire que tu utilises. Yes, if we hear the word you use, access, protocol, flow, you're clearly making a reference to a firewall. So you should see Silverfort as a firewall of the Active Directory, as an authentication firewall to apply rules, MFA, rejection, depending on the protocol that I want to use. So we agree, this is what you were looking for, and this is what you did implement. Well, it doesn't seem revolutionary conceptually. We know how to do, but what is specific about Silverfort that you were really interested in? Several things. First, this easiness of implementation. It was as simple as what they had demonstrated. So we knew it would work in our environment. That was the main thing. And during the whole proof of concept, which lasted, I don't know, maybe a month, we had a week to check what we wanted to check in terms of use cases. And we had no fail throughout the use cases that we went through. It worked exactly as planned. So that was really appreciated. Then the second topic that we found interesting was we were told that we could manage the different service accounts, and this is something that we were interested in because it's a nightmare for people doing admin, and particularly from the security side of things, because we need to know and we like to know who does what when, and it's not something we always have an overview of. So we looked with Silverfort how we could do that. And when you look at the solution during the time of the test out, the concept, it worked every time in terms of authentication, and it has an intelligence, for want of a better word, that allows it to say it's a service account or equivalent to a service account, meaning a simple service account connects from a device X to a device Y at a given time. In theory, between device A and B, I can see that there is an authentication at 4 a.m., for example. That's very simple to detect. You don't need to be very smart. But in real life, this is not how it happens. Service accounts that are machine-to-machine accounts, some of them end up knowing the passwords, using the passwords in interactive sessions, which is something we can block now, but we cannot do it with all. And some of those service accounts are used very widely. You may have a service or department account used from one PC connected to all other PCs in a department. It's not quite the same as from device A to device B, or service account that would go from one device to a number of devices. This is more difficult to detect. And it is all the more difficult to detect if we want to check the password, which we may have forgotten, which is in the machines, but that we may not remember. So it's a way to do a mapping. And after a few days, we have this mapping. Now, just like in every mapping based on behavior, we get false positives. So it is for us to react and adjust, saying, I know this account, it is a service account, so it's a proper service account, but this other one is a user, a support person using a service account because it's used on several devices, but it's just a user account, it's not a service account. So these are things that you can start to detect when you do the mapping, but just the starting point, you have the whole list of activated and active service accounts. You can quite quickly, I mean quickly meaning a week, more than a week, whatever, but after a while I can see that between the list of service accounts which are listed in my Active Directory and those that have requested authentication in the last weeks, last 6 months, last year, these are the proper service accounts. The others are never activated. Maybe I can disable them. So it's a way to clean up. It's a very good thing. You clean up unused accounts. And the second thing we were able to do was to protect service accounts. With Silverfort, it's not an MFA. It would be too difficult to have an MFA to call for an operator to come in at 4 a.m. So the way to protect those service accounts was to decide whether you would let pass or block. And to do that, you can put filtering rules in place. I'll give you an example. I want to let connection go from device A to device B between 3:05 and 3:35 in the morning. That can be a rule. Or I want to let this service account on this range, IP source, IP destination, or single destination or single source, or I can blend times of day, usages, etc. So it gives me a fairly good idea of the activity that I allow, and I've restricted the use to the normal utilization. Plus, I have the mapping, which allows me to update passwords. Because I know all sources are identified, they're identified and available. So it's a plus, and it's really interesting in terms of protection for us. Now, above and beyond that, we looked at other topics that we saw emerging during the study period. For example, the detection of weaknesses that you may have on the activity. For example, if you have old until MV1 protocols, very legacy protocol, it's not always easy to suppress, and it's annoying. So with Silverfort, it's not just doing a switch off. Since you have all authentications, you know how each and every account authenticates. All sources using MTL MV1, it becomes simpler. It's not easy, but it's at least simpler to deal with suppression of a number of protocols which have become obsolete. So mapping, protection of service accounts. So in this protection of service accounts, you can protect from the account on the scanner copier with a lot of rounds historically, which can potentially connect anywhere, which means the copier, the service account, can no longer authenticate itself to drop a file. That's quite revolutionary in the way it's dealt with. And if I followed what you were telling previously, you have no implementation of agent on the servers. Yes, and that was very interesting because we have thousands of users with thousands of devices. Every time the editors come and say, this is the solution, this is how it works, you need an agent on the devices, an agent on a device is a nightmare. I don't know what your life is like, but the addition of agents on servers has always been a nightmare. So with the Silverfort solution, what we found interesting was that I end up with domain control, and per group of controller I have a knot, and I only need one agent per domain controller. The question is it not risky to implement an agent? Yes, because we have to put an agent that will send the metadata to the controlling knot in Silverfort. People ask us, is this not against the rules of the third-party zero? Yes, but one specificity about Silverfort is that their software layer is certified by Microsoft in the framework of a technological partnership. So even if you call Google as a support, you're not going to be ejected because you have a Silverfort component. Silverfort is certified by Google, so we just need to implement this component that will send the metadata, because what we do is data firewalling. And this is how the security management is done. And it's the domain controller, depending on what Silverfort tells them, gives or not the green light. this is how it works in a nutshell. We're here to really be a witness. So Laurent, after those tests and proof of concepts on use cases, what are the next steps? Of course, we've engaged into cleaning our network, cancelling all accounts, monitoring a number of accounts. We've identified weaknesses in our Active Directory, NTLMD1, for example, but also other weaknesses, shadow admins, for example, people who are not domain admin, but because of an accumulation of authentication, reach more or less the level of a domain admin. So it's a way for us to identify those people. We can also identify obsolete accounts, obsolete devices, so we can disable. So it's cleaning up our network. But just like any solutions, we would like to have something that deals with more than our Active Directory. So we're looking at implementing that on the Azure AD. We also have a number of devices. We don't just have Windows. It's not even the majority. We have a number of Linux devices, Red Dot devices, and we're going to have the Authent SSH via the Active Directory with the same capacity as for the Windows devices. So it will be a way for us to have a global visibility on all authentication, whether in the AD or the Azure AD, whether on Windows devices or Linux devices, which are in our fleet, plus everything else, PowerShell, Ghosted, etc. So you want to turn Silverfort into the central point of authentication for Active Directory and everything else with the extended visibility, mapping, remediation, etc. Yes, exactly. There's one little thing that I didn't mention, which can be interesting to mention. The fact that, of course, it's a spitting lock that I can then reconnect on my CIEM, so I have more qualified alerts or alarms on a number of subjects. That's for the integration part. This is also something that we're looking at. Thank you very much. Thank you for this very detailed account of your journey with Silverfort. Do we have questions? We have a few minutes, and if not, you can come and talk to us after the session. It's not easy to sum up a wide solution like Silverfort within 30 minutes. Thank you for your feedback. First question, is it improvised or incest solution? He needs to drink, so I will give you an answer. It's on-premise solution. It's hybrid, but the components VM are in-premise. Two components: the NOT and then the admin console, which will interpret everything that is sent back from the NOT, where the rules are decided. And I say hybrid because, of course, there's discussion with the cloud for push services, MFA, but it could work without it. So it's on-premise. And we can even have it in segregated networks. The question was, from the data point of view, you generate log. So apart from connected to a SOC or CIEM, where are the logs stored? In the admin NOT. So there's a VM which sites depend on the Active Directory. So it's stored on this VM on-premise. You can host it on Azure if you want, but functionally speaking, everything is on-premise. And second point, compatibility with GSMA. I look at Silverfort, compatible, yes, Franck? Yes, 4.9. So GSMA are supported by the Silverfort solution. Very good question. Very good question in terms of support. Anything else? Well, it's 3 p.m. on the dot, so perfect timing. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Laurent.